The double-edged sword of being a healthy mom trying to raise healthy kids. From a mom who raised a daughter thinking that we were healthy, and before I knew it, at age 15, she was 320 pounds. I was totally in denial, totally in shock, and totally ill-equipped, even though I'd spent my entire life in an eating disordered household and felt like getting my bachelor's and master's degree was gonna like totally bypass this problem, and clearly it didn't, because it happened to us. But luckily, Penelope lost over 150 pounds and we got back on track, but it's really tricky. So if you're a mom out there, there's really a double-edged sword when you're trying to be healthy, because like you give your kid healthy choices and then other people will judge you because it's like, oh, well, she should be able to have cake and she should eat the junk food. And then it's like, no wonder she has an eating disorder because you've been feeding her healthy food the whole time. How is that even like a thing? But it's a thing. Trying to be a healthy mom is a double-edged sword because you're giving your kid an eating disorder when you're trying to feed them healthy foods. Like, that doesn't even seem sane. What are you supposed to do?
I would say that there's a lot of like stigma out there right now about like giving your kids healthy food and how it's deprivation. And from someone who lived in that household of deprivation, I would say, looking as I get older, like they always say, oh, parents are too strict. And I really disagree with that because I think strict parents raise great children. And it's the same thing with moms who raise their children healthy. Usually their kids get healthier and they have great bodies when they're older and strong bodies. And I even think I'm lucky to not have that many health issues now because you raised me eating really great foods. I messed it up for myself, which was my fault. I take full accountability.
I blame all the ultra-processed foods, but...
Right. That's what I'm saying, though. I'm the one that consumed it. I blame the consumer. Everybody else in this generation likes to blame the mom, the food industry.
They say it's child abuse.
I blame myself for consuming it because we control what we consume.
Aren't I the one who provided them money?
That's what people say about you. They're like, oh, it's your fault. How dare you raise your daughter this way? But I get this is what I mean. But they say the same thing about strict parenting. Don't be a strict parent. Let your kids do whatever they want. They'll become great people. That's also not accurate because we've seen, statistically speaking, we see that strict parents who raise kids, their kids usually turn out better.
Yeah, but what was I supposed to do? Like follow you around school or threaten you for eating junk food? Or like...
You and I talked about this. You were supposed to homeschool me. You were supposed to...
Oh, yeah.
You know
You really wanted to be homeschooled.
I didn't, but I'm just saying, like, if you had started homeschooling me at a young age, then I wouldn't have gotten into all those processed foods, became addicted. That would have been the better answer.
For sure.
Now there's a trend, like, of homestead, beautiful moms raising their kids at home, on the farm, homeschooling them, making scratch.
Did I ever tell you the story? So I knew that public school wasn't working out, and I was no longer in a position to afford private school. And so I called the homeschooling place, like, to find out more information. So we had the talk, and she's, like, explaining it to me, and I was like, yeah, well, I work. And there was this, like, long silence. Awkward. And she just said, I'm so sorry. Because in her mind, there was no way to homeschool you and also work. And then I hung up the phone and I cried for like 5 minutes. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, it's really tricky being a single mom. Not gonna lie.
I believe you.
So the second reason why it's so challenging to be a healthy mom is that when you do practice self-care, like exercising and sourcing ingredients and going to farmers markets and doing things that you need to do to sustain your own energy, you're seen as selfish. It's tricky. It's a double-edged sword. I'm sure there were many times you thought I was selfish. You know, doing all the yoga that I did and all the things. And that's so hard to balance, like doing things for yourself and not being labeled selfish.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I honestly just think we live in a generation that's too sensitive. And I think that everyone is just like tiptoeing around your feelings. And I think you taking care of yourself and showing your kids that example is a good thing.
I agree, but...
And if you don't put them in public school and you don't put them, because public schools are the number one most processed food. What is it called?
Ultra-processed food?
No.
Oh, the number one fast food restaurant.
The number one fast food restaurant.
Largest fast food restaurant chain.
Is your school.
Elementary school, yeah. High school, middle school, yeah, for sure.
I've seen the moms who are like, oh, making your kids eat food, forcing your kids to eat food is like child abuse.
Okay, so mealtime, I think, is a really important thing. And to gather around the table at mealtime is like a family meeting every day. And there are statistics that show that like families that have dinner together are just more healthier, they're more mentally stable, they have a sense of community instead of everyone being on their phones or eating in front of the TV or whatever. And so if you require your children to join you at the table, you're seen as forcing them to eat, which is then, of course, causing the eating disorder. It's so tricky. Like, what are we supposed to do? Legit.
That's just crazy.
Just, I mean, like, but really, like brainstorm with me here. Like, how do you win in this equation?
You force your kid. You said this is what you're eating. This is what we're serving today.
Yeah.
There are kids dying in other countries who can't even afford food. You teach them that lesson. You taught me that.
I know.
You were very strict about it, and you were like, Penelope, you eat your broccoli or don't eat it at all. And like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I get it now, and I'm gonna raise my kids the same way. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not. It's not.
Yeah, I do.
Sensitive. Stop being sensitive.
When you were really young, I tried to educate you about food because I figured if you knew what a vegetable was, you knew what a fruit was, you knew what grains were, then you would be able to like make choices knowing how much one is supposed to eat in a day. And so by educating you about healthy food choices, it's seen as giving you an eating disorder, according to your therapist at the time, who also had an eating disordered child, and who was probably also eating disordered herself. Do you remember that? So I made like a little picture graph. I had like 3 fruits and 5 vegetables and like 3 grains or 2 grains. You know, like I had protein. And you were like, Mom, because like you had bread for breakfast and bread for lunch, and at dinner you like wanted pasta. And I'm like, well, let's see.
But to me, that's educational.
I know, but
you're doing that.
You're an eating disorder.
You're doing that for my gut microbiome. Thank you so much for teaching me about my gut microbiome at a very young age, because now it makes sense. And it's the same thing. Like little kids hate their parents at the time, and then when they grow up, they're like, Mom, I'm so glad you told me that or taught me that, or same thing with scrubbing the toilets. I'm so glad you did. I do that all the time now, and it's not gross to me anymore. It's just like a daily chore.
And your therapist was like, stop talking about food.
But
And
that's
it's like,
what
what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? So this is the other double-edged sword.
I remember the first time you bought me a McDonald's fry. And I was like, what was I, like 8?
I don't
It was
even
the first
remember.
time you bought me a McDonald's fry. You were like clenching your teeth the whole time.
I was?
Yeah, you were like I remember you watching me eat it. I was like, so yummy. And guess what? Right after I was done eating it, I wanted more.
So the double-edged sword is like, if you don't give your kids junk food, then you are depriving them. And then if you do give your kids junk food, then they become food addicts. Not all of them, but some of them become food addicts. And it's a double-edged sword. It's like if I tell you not to eat the cake, then I'm causing a food issue. If I let you eat the cake, then I'm causing a food issue. It's like, how do you win as a parent? It is so challenging, especially today with ultra-processed foods and how addictive they are, to keep your kids safe without having them develop an eating disorder. And I was out and about in the world, and you probably didn't see this as much in Europe, but I was traveling in the States, and it was like, I've never seen so many overweight kids before. It's really alarming.
It is. They're all like at least 50 pounds overweight.
And parents are like, I felt like my hands were tied.
Parents are feeding their kids junk food now. There's like videos on Instagram of moms being like, I'm a busy mom. This is what I feed my kids. They're like frying donuts at 8 a.m. Like if that's easier than making them a plate of berries.
So some people say
just
it's
open
child
it-
abuse to do that, and some people say it's child
is.
abuse to deprive your children.
It's child abuse to give them donuts fried in canola oil. I mean, what the heck?
They just don't know any better.
Sugar, flour, more oil. I mean, that's the
Salt.
worst way to start your morning.
I mean, it's better than, I guess, starving.
It's like poisoning your kids.
For sure.
Would you rather poison your kids or starve them? I think starving them is better than poisoning them.
I don't know if I agree.
Causes cancer. Sugar causes cancer.
Long term.
If you're doing that every day. Anyway.
This is a big conversation.
This is a big conversation. If you want us to have more conversations like this, comment down below.
Yeah, we really want to hear how you feel like your hands are tied as a parent with an eating disordered child, or in an eating disordered household, or feeling eating disordered yourself. We want to get to know you. So comment, like, share, and subscribe. And please know that we're here to help you. We are a mother-daughter duo. We have been dealing with eating disorders ourselves. We've lost over 250 pounds combined. And if anyone understands the complexity of obesity, it's us. So we'd love to know you and hear from you. And thanks for watching.